Well, I did bring chocolate now.
Awesome.
I brought my favourites because I always get asked that question and then they go, where are they?
Mm-hmm.
I brought them with me. Dark scorched almonds, the best breakfast food in the world because it's protein and sugar.
Nice.
And dark chocolate. For coffee lovers, milk cappuccino bars because most people have never tasted these.
They're amazing.
Aren't they good? They're a bit addictive. And then I've also brought 2 of our brand new single origin chocolates.
Cool.
So we're doing a couple, but I brought one from Java that's more milk, so it's 44%, and one from Belize, which is quite earthy and it's like got dried fruit. And I think that's more... These really remind me how much chocolate making is like wine making.
Yeah.
There's a segue for you. In that we take a raw ingredient and we turn it into something else, and the flavours of where that ingredient have come from can really be seen in the end product, much like a single vineyard wine or a regional wine. Yeah, it's a whole terroir concept. And yeah, when you eat these together, you go, how can chocolate taste so different? But I just liken it to
You
wine.
might have to do a tasting on air, I think.
Yeah. And then these, which don't even have a label, might be our brand new single malt whiskey chocolate.
Wow, really? Might be.
So, yes, they're a bit special too, but they're for Father's Day. They've
I like
been
the
launched for
packaging.
Father's Day.
It's really cool.
Isn't it cool?
Yeah.
So we have an in-house designer, Dean, who does all of that work for us.
So Nick's our lead designer. So
Dean's our senior designer, so I'll let him know that. But yes, he does all our packaging. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on the podcast, Fiona. Really good to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
So you head up marketing at Haigh's Chocolates?
I do, yes.
And sit on the exec board as well?
Yes, that's right.
Awesome. Thanks for bringing in the treats. I actually watched a documentary on making of chocolate the other day. It was a YouTube short, but I didn't realise sort of the length that you go through, fermenting the pods, are they? And then actually that processing that goes through before it even gets into the raw form and comes through to someone like yourself.
And aren't they beautiful? Did you see the pods? Like they're the most gorgeous colours.
But they sort of have this sort of sap, or they almost look otherworldly when they come out of the pod. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they dry, and you have to dry them and make sure that they're dry, and then they get roasted. That's only the very, very beginning of the process.
And
it's
such
quite
a process
amazing.
that's gone through before it even gets there. So I think this was in Belize where they were doing it.
There you go. That's good.
Yeah. So and air drying everything outside and having to sort of turn them so they that fermentation process kind of stops. So yeah, it was incredible.
Yeah.
So
it's magical, I think.
But you don't think about, when you think about chocolate, you sort of just think about the end product, but you don't really think of, all that sort of, even before it gets through to someone like yourselves who are doing sort of this finishing and turning it into this, beautiful edible products. It's already sort of gone through this journey, hasn't it?
It's a farm. It's agriculture. And I think it's kind of, we forget that first step, that it's a raw and naturally grown ingredient that we lovingly roast and turn into this liquid gold that's chocolate, and then into lots of other deliciousness. But it's essentially it's a bean, and it's grown on a tree. It's as simple as that, only in very special places.
What is it like inside, like a big pod?
It's a pod, but it's like a flesh inside. So it looks like a fruit in a way, like this big, and the colours can be reds and greens and browns and bluey purple colours. It's quite amazing.
Wow. It makes you wonder how they first found it. It's like this weird looking pod, and then they have to break it open.
And it was very bitter. It is very bitter. Yeah. So the first chocolate they ever made was a drinking chocolate, and it was terribly bitter, but it had other properties that they loved. So I think they put up with it until they discovered sugar and mixed sugar with it, and then it turned in all sorts of other things.
Do you know much about the history of that? Because obviously, like a lot of South American, because that's
it's Aztec,
sure. So like potato, all these things that are just chilies, such a part of sort of world cuisine now, weren't around until the mid 1600s. So
and then it took some people in England to actually turn it into what we now call a chocolate bar, in its most basic form. Sure. Because you couldn't. It was a drinking chocolate. That's drinking chocolate. It was like a cocoa sort of liquid, and it was when they discovered how they could add cocoa butter back into it to make it into a solid that was enjoyable, and the addition of sugar that the first sort of chocolate bar was invented, and that was in England. So we can thank Mr. Fry for that.
Mr. Fry?
Mr. Fry.
Thank you, Mr. Fry.
Didn't they, I think it was like the Aztecs and the Mayans, they used like beans as like coin or something. That's what
Did
I
they
heard.
trade with them? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, because apparently they like, there's some kind of crazy like politics going on. They kind of made people not grow them as much, so they use it as like a precious kind of coin for trade.
Interesting. So like regulated the crops.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah, kind of like money.
It's
Money
probably
money
worth
can
money.
grow on trees.
If it's a cocoa pod.
So, I mean, I suppose it's interesting, like the actual product itself is so old, but Haigh's, it has such a long tradition here in South Australia. And I mean, there's not many companies floating around that with the sort of tradition and history of Haigh. 103 years this year.
103 years on the 1st of May.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, and still family owned and 5th generation.
Oh, wow.
Have worked in the business,
Wow.
run by the 4th generation, and the 6th generation have been born. So there you go. So there's plenty more Haigh's family members to come along. So yeah, Alfred Haigh started off. He actually was from the mid-north originally, and had like a fruit and veg and lolly shop up there, and then moved down to Mount Gambier and ran some cinemas and did confectionery and ice creams and cordials and things.
Okay.
And then moved to Adelaide and bought a chocolate business off of Carl Stratman, who was based upstairs in the Beehive Corner. So that's actually how the business started. So he actually purchased someone else's chocolate business.
Wow. And so that building's been Haigh's
for nearly 100 years,
wow.
close to 100 years.
I did not know that actually.
Yeah,
wow.
So we were actually around the corner, so the bit that faced King William Street.
Yeah, sure.
And then we've been on the corner of Beehive for many, many years.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, it's so the chocolate used to be made upstairs there.
Okay.
So there were all workshops and things up there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Where is the and now where's the
So predominantly we moved there then to Parkside, so on Green Hill Road.
Yeah.
And we now have actually a brand new cocoa processing processing plant at Myland. So we've just invested $15 million in that. So that
that's
opened.
like on Railway Terrace.
Yes,
behind,
near Bunnings there.
Yeah, sure.
And we have a big warehouse on one side of the road and this new cocoa processing plant. And we've also got some chocolate making. So it kind of works in two bits. We've invested quite heavily in the cocoa processing. And then it's turning that chocolate, which is literally kept in beautiful stainless steel tanks, liquid chocolate, turning that into the chocolates that you see in a store. So
wow.
we have some, we do some of that at Parkside still and some at Myland as well. But we're making about 1,000 tonne of chocolate a year now.
Jeez.
Wow.
And through the new plant, we can lift that up to 2,000 if we want to.
And has that scaled up a lot in the sort of last 5-6 years?
Yeah, it has. It has. So we were only able, before we did this new plant, we could only do 750.
Okay.
So we'll go up to about 1,000, and then as we grow over the next couple of years, we can scale that all up to 2,000, which is quite amazing. That's a lot of chocolate.
It's a lot of chocolate.
It's a lot of chocolate.
And so is that primarily through your retail? So you've got retail stores in Australia.
That's all through our retail stores and our online store.
Cool.
So we have now 6 stores in Adelaide. We have 7 in Melbourne. We've been in Melbourne for 53 years, which lots of people don't know.
Sure.
Melbourne people might think we're from Melbourne, but I'm happy for them to think that. Adelaide people know we're from Adelaide. And we have 3 stores in Sydney now, 1 in Canberra, and we've been in Sydney for 13 years as well. Yes, Sydney people actually thought we'd been there the whole time when we opened our first store. So I was happy for them to think that too. So, and online we launched a couple of years ago, which was a great leap forward for a 100-year-old chocolate company.
And how? So I mean, we've done quite a lot of work in the wine industry as well, and work with family businesses, not 100 years, but like 2 generations, 3 generations in, and small family businesses, no matter how sort of large the operations might be, dealing with change and digital, and especially what's happened in the last 15 years, because it's been huge, especially when you see a company that's sort of probably had 90 years of pretty continuous marketing and how the brand's positioned, and then all of a sudden digital comes in and it's like, well, this is a whole new world. Opens up a lot of doors, but it also creates, I suppose, challenges as well.
Yeah, and I think for us raised a lot more questions than answers,
Sure.
which I think everyone has experienced in this space. And how is it relevant to a brand that doesn't necessarily communicate in that way?
Sure.
When I started with the business 6 years ago, we were just using Facebook. and, Twitter, it was like, what on earth is that? Instagram didn't exist. And now that's one of our biggest ways to communicate with our customers. And what from a social media perspective, for me, the change I've seen is that customers actually want to communicate in a two-way dialogue with you in those spaces, which they didn't 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Sure.
And they're expecting answers. And they're quite happy to post a question on an Instagram post. So it's how do you manage that? How do you manage your customer expectations? And how do you make sure that you're delivering the same service and brand in a digital space as you do in a store? Because we've done that for 100 years. We know that
100%.
like the back of our hand. And, we work really hard to keep those standards really high because we really believe in delighting our customers every way we can. But what does that mean in a digital space? We, when someone's on our website, we can't give them a free tasting. I'd love if I can figure that out. I wouldn't be sitting here.
Australia Post up their game.
And for us, it took us a couple of years to just get our head around how do we send chocolate without it turning into mush at the other end.
And ensure that quality control all the way through.
Yeah, like it hurt your head to think about how on earth can we do that. It's a bit easier with clothing. It's easy with books. It's easy with music. Even wine's easier than it is chocolate. You get a few broken bottles, but and sometimes things would go missing because they'd realise it was wine in the parcel. But chocolate, it's like literally, how do you keep a chocolate to the right standard? Because our stores are air conditioned to 21 degrees, 365 days of the year, 24/7.
Sure.
And we have control over that, but we don't have control over that when we stick it in a box and send it through Australia Post.
Sure.
So we did a lot of testing, and we found a way to do it where 95% of the time what you order and what you receive is right. We can't get it right all the time, but I'm really proud the way we've worked that out.
How do you do it?
We there's a lot of packaging, unfortunately. We do recycle as much as we can, and we actually reuse any bubble wrap in our business 3 or 4 times over.
Cool.
And we use ice packs.
Okay.
But they have to be food standard ice packs. You can't just whack any ice packs.
Like the Techni ice.
So we have freezers full of ice packs that get sent out. So, and we do make sure that we know it's going to be 40 degrees in Alice Springs that day, we won't send it. We become very good weather forecasters.
Oh, wow, okay.
So we monitor all of those sorts of things as well. But middle of winter's easy. Don't mind selling chocolate online in the middle of winter. So that the Christmas is a challenge, but we have to allow for delays and all those wonderful Australia Post issues that do arise. So,
it's interesting. We've done a bunch of work in the e-commerce space with food producers, and it just seems like cold storage and logistics in this country is. I mean, it seems like there's a huge open market there for someone to jump in and improve on it because it's appreciate the distance is a huge here in Oz, but it doesn't seem like it's the best served industry.
No, and I keep thinking, why is it so easy in Europe? And then I'm like, well, that weather's literally different.
Yeah.
So they don't necessarily have to think about it quite as much.
Sure.
But I also think there are definitely world's best practices that aren't happening in Australia.
I think so. And in the US too. I mean, the distances are still big there. But
there are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the cost of shipping is a lot cheaper.
Yes, yeah. And I don't know, is that just population? Population concentration, East Coast, West Coast? Because you start looking at the US as a potential export market, and that scares the living bejesus out of you as well, because you're like, well, what bit do I focus on?
Sure.
So, that's the scale of it.
Jumping off that, what is so Australia only at the moment?
Australia only at the moment.
Cool.
Yes, on my list of things, my whiteboard in my office to think about export. But again, it's the same challenges of freight and how do we work around dairy laws in the EU and different countries and things like that. So it's not as cut and dried and easy as I'd like it to be, unfortunately. I'd love to send it all around the world.
So having grown up in Adelaide, like Haigh has always sort of been, sitting there on the corner, but it's, it's sort of an institution, right? So the chocolate frogs, you eat a chocolate frog a day, dark chocolate frog? Maybe.
Maybe.
I heard that somewhere.
Maybe. One's enough. One's enough a day.
Yeah, but it has this, I suppose, for a South Australian, it just feels like a part of the sort of the environment of Adelaide. But then, as a brand, like, are you positioning yourselves as a luxury brand, or is it just how do you see yourselves, especially looking at those export markets, like Chinese tourists coming in, or foreign tourists? How does Haigh see itself?
We see ourselves as a premium brand.
Sure.
I probably wouldn't use the word luxury. I think I leave luxury to the Louis Vuittons of the world.
Sure.
We sit just below that.
Yeah.
And we make sure that's the experience people have in store. And I try to translate that into the online environment as well, as much as we can. And for me, it's, in Adelaide, we've got a brand awareness in the 90s. It's a wonderful problem to have in Adelaide. Sure. So even in the eastern states, we have to work hard to build on that. It's not sitting nearly at that number, but it's still healthy, which is really great. And lots of people, when we do our market research, we come after Lint, in people's minds, which to me, for a small Adelaide business, we're not big. We do have nearly 600 employees across the board, but we're still not a multinational like the Lints and Cadburys of the world, but we come in third or fourth, which to me is great. So it means the team are doing their job. But if we're premium, we're bean to bar, which means we make from the cocoa bean, and there are very few people in Australia doing that. And we're also small batch manufacturers, so we only make really small batches of everything. So that gives us the best taste. And we can turn over stock more, so it's fresh, and we know that what we deliver to our stores will be really good. And then I guess Australian owned and family owned is also important. But frankly, for me, it's all about the taste. If we're not making great chocolate, then none of that else matters, and we fall down on that. So, as long as we're delighting our customers with great tasting chocolate, and we're giving them a premium experience, then I think we're doing our job well. And
I think that the proof's in the product at the end of the day. But then the challenge for you is to get the product to the people that don't know about it.
Exactly, and I really, that's the challenge. I think in every year in our marketing plan is how do we get our chocolate into more people's mouths? Because I know that if we can get it into their mouth, we'll convert them.
Sure.
But the challenge is getting it into new mouths. That sounds really weird when you say that out loud and it's not in your head.
I always grab some because I always walk past the one in the arcade.
Oh, Adelaide end of Adelaide Arcade, Greenfield Street.
And then also the one on King
on
William.
Well, then you can do the three. You've also got Central Market Arcade.
A sampler on your walk to work.
Just a little pick me up on the way through. But yeah, I mean, it's about getting it into new mouths and getting them to experience it and find it. And that's one of the reasons we do the free tasting in store too. That's a real promotional brand awareness and helps with tourists too. So some of our stores are located in areas where we have a much higher number of tourists in those stores.
Especially in Melbourne and Sydney, you've got pretty good locations.
Yeah. So our, in particular, our QVB store is a bit of a tourist mecca, so we have a high percentage of tourists come in there, and they're really after the Australian flavours too. Yeah. So they love the frogs because they're a bit wacky.
Sure.
And then the Australian flavours. We do a salted caramel that uses Murray River salt.
Nice.
Oh. And we use some native ingredients too. So there's a lemon myrtle cream and those sorts of things that are a little bit different, and they're happy to take home, and share. Which is good, yeah.
So how does that translate to digital? Because it makes sense being in QVB and you've got a population walking through and you've got foot traffic, but then how do you reach out to that same audience or a new audience and sort of bring across the history and the taste in a non sort of, I suppose, or a different sensory perception?
Photography. It's really, really important. Cool. We work with a great local photographer and stylist, and we when we launched the last website, we did we reshot everything, and the whole proviso was that the photos had to be lickable.
I like that.
Which again sounds weird when you say it out loud. But yeah, we just really wanted to make people want to taste it, and how do you convey that in chocolate? So we did a lot of test shots, and we kind of came up with our own style, and we've been following that for 4 years now. And, you know, sometimes I think, if we shoot a chocolate again in this way, I'm going to... But then then the practical side of me goes, just because I've seen it 5,000 times doesn't mean anyone else has. So, you know, it's all good. But we try to up our game every year. So we do a couple of photo shoots every year. We have to shoot each season because we don't repeat any designs for a season. Cool. So there's always a new Christmas and new Easter, a new Father's Day, new Mother's Day, new Valentine's Day, plus a gift range. So that gives us the opportunity to bring a bit of personality in as well and tell a different story. And, you know, for example, we'll be going into the studio and spending a week shooting Christmas at the end of August. Okay. So people might be amused by the fact we spend a whole week shooting chocolates. But oh,
no, I can imagine.
Yeah, it's for such little things. And that's the other thing, even the perspective you've got to think about. I have all these wonderful ideas, and our stylist, I love her, and she just shakes her head at me and goes, Fiona, that's not going to... Think of the size. And I'm like, I know, but it would be so great if we could. And yeah, no, they're only little things. So I look to inspiration from sort of homewares and jewellery and things to get ideas on how we can maybe shoot chocolate in a different way, but it still has to be lickable.
Sort of visually merchandising it in sort of a beautiful way.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And then we have to translate that into the store as well. So it has to work both ways.
Okay. Is there any kind of odd jobs that have popped up in recent years? Like, for example, in the web industry, like there's people's jobs that just to write the words that go inside buttons. Like, so is there something similar to that in the chocolate industry?
In the chocolate, coming up with names is really hard sometimes because what might be the technical name for something, I often go, yeah, but a customer's not going to know what on earth that is. And how do you make that that name tell you everything about that product really quickly? So that's a challenge. Okay. And we 12 months ago actually brought on a digital marketing specialist in-house. Okay. So that's a new role that we've brought on too, which has opened my eyes up to a whole different set of scenarios, and it's meant we're merchandising differently on the website. Sure. And we're looking at packaging products in a different way that we don't do in-store. Mm-hmm. So it's about making it easy and making, you know, we've got over 250 products and it can be daunting. So how does a first-time visitor to our website get their head around what they can buy? Sure. So it's Andy's job to nut that out, and you know, she's been working very hard on that, and we've kicked a few goals, which is really good with that. So
is that just looking at data and looking at sort of how people are using the site and
and price points, and look, the average sale online is a lot more than in store, which is what I thought would happen when we hypothesized all of this, but it's more again than what we actually guessed. Mm-hmm. So that's a pleasant surprise when that happens, when it swings that way. Mm-hmm. And conversions, you know, probably about industry average. But yeah, it's about converting more people. We have a really high organic reach. Nice. Which I think is a good thing.
Definitely.
And I think that comes down to brand awareness of Haigh's, and a lot of people just search for Haigh's.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, which is what, you know, isn't that the dream for everyone? Just stick your brand name in and find you. So that's a bit unique for us, and, you know, sort of works into the way that we look at the way we word things. But certainly we're writing a lot more content than I ever thought we would, and new content all the time.
We're big believers internally of sort of brand pushing, you know, whatever it is, but whatever it is you're marketing, but, you know, that a strong brand being the backbone of it, you know, and in that traditional kind of sense of what a brand is, but having that sort of, you know, sense of authority and trust, and, you know, which Haigh's, I think, kind of embodies really. Because you imagine if we just launched a new chocolate brand, Nick and I want to launch chocolate, do some amazing designs, we do some really cool Instagram ads, but then, you know, you've never heard of this before, you know, actually building that trust is what is very difficult.
Yeah, and I was very lucky to inherit that, to take that into this space. It was that was a gift, you know, because I haven't had to start from scratch.
And is that where you sort of came in before the web? Yeah, it would have been sort of 3 years.
So we, when I first started with the business, we just had a, you know, stock standard website, and we launched online the online store since we've been there, and we're now in the process of the next version of that. So that hurts my head all the time thinking about that. But it's, where do we take that? How do we do that? How do we do it differently? How do we get to even more people and make sure that the experience is even better than it is now, because I think you can always improve.
So you mentioned bringing on was it Andy in digital marketing.
Yep.
So we've worked with some other Australian brands recently in the last 5 years that have didn't have that digital presence and have brought it on, and all of a sudden they might have had a 2-3 person marketing team, and now they've got a content team and a digital team. And
that sounds dreamy. I wish I had all of that.
But it becomes...
We've just evolved.
Sure, but delegate. But it does become that sort of, how does content fit into your sort of, as a marketer, because you've got lots of things you think about, traditional marketing and activations and the stores and retail, and then all of a sudden people, you've got to be making videos, and, how does that all fit into your sort of strategy?
As my team would say, we're doing even more than we ever have, which is very true. But when I look back, it has evolved, and we've all learnt new bits, and we've all taken on new bits. And like, for example, the first good example of that is our recipe collection. So we now have over 50 recipes online.
Cool.
That you can use our chocolate to create the most amazing chocolate cakes, actually, and other desserts. And that was just something we kind of started off with, that we knew that we wanted to do, because to me it's another reason to buy our chocolate.
Sure.
And look, you're not going to make a Haig's chocolate cake every week, but for a special occasion or a special dinner or something, it does. Well, in my mind, if you use good ingredients for anything, you can end up with a better result.
Sure.
So this is no different to that. And that has evolved now. We now do videos of those recipes, and we have over 50 of them. And now we're like, okay, what do we do next, and how do we do this next? But that gets teamed with an activation in store. And a whole 3 or 4 week campaign will happen in store to support that.
Sure.
So it's about that layering, and how do you tell that story, that same story, 5 or 6 different ways. And we even do that by running a competition amongst our retail teams.
Cool.
For a bake-off.
Nice.
So, we give them the chocolate and say, here are the new recipes, go home and make them. And they, and they do these magnificent photo shoots. Like, we get these Instagram-worthy photos, and, and we judge the best results from that, and they get to... But that translates to them having a practical experience with it, and then they can talk to the team, to their customers. And it's just that layer upon layer upon layer that I think is... for us, where it lies at the heart of it. It's
Sure.
not trying to do something different in every different space. It's the same story in different ways.
Do you use that content as marketing content?
Yeah, we do.
Nice.
We do. So that, and the website changes for every campaign. So every 3 to 4 weeks, the front page of the website changes.
Sure. I noticed you have the new...
Single origin.
Single
Yep,
origin
but that will
there.
change to Father's Day tomorrow.
Nice.
So it's all ready to go. So and at the same time that changes in store. And all our messaging on digital and social media changes, and hopefully we bring the PR aspect in as well. And so it's all the bits together. So in a way, to me, it's the same old principles of marketing,
Sure.
just different avenues. And we don't really do print anymore.
Okay. Interesting.
So I look at our budgets and what we've spent previously, and we don't really play in that space anymore. And we funnel that same money into other avenues. And I kind of like to have my marketing budget with, about 20% to try new stuff every year.
Sure.
And then, assess what worked, what didn't, drops off, and then reinvest in the things that did work, but we need to just take that next level. So it still comes back to the basic marketing mix and the 4 Ps and all of that stuff you learn at uni.
It's a really interesting place to play. And we deal with most of our clients and marketers, and something I'm really interested in personally. And we're doing some mentoring with third year Adelaide Uni marketing students, and I think it's a strange world, because the principles are as they always have been, but then you come out into this world where I think you walk into a small business and they're like, right, we want you to run Facebook ads, we want you to make a website, we want you to do an event, and it's sort of like, well, how do I do all of this? How do I? There's so many sort of tools and different avenues that you can take. So I think the core hasn't changed, but the playing field's just gotten different.
And maybe it comes back to the customer. Who is your customer? Knowing who your customer is, where they can be reached, what messaging and storytelling they want.
Yeah.
And making sure that's where you're playing. You're not trying to spread yourself too thin. And I think for me, as I'm getting older and having done this for a while now, my best experiences and where I learnt the most was when I had no money to spend.
Sure.
You know,
more creative.
Yeah, you had to think about and you had to work out what to do. And the little bit that you were given, you know, there were a couple of my marketing jobs. I didn't have a marketing budget. I had to ask for every bit that I wanted to spend. But that just meant you had to be creative. And the other space that I've learnt that was through volunteering and doing marketing for non-profits. In that, you just have to, and you learn from other people and you see what works and you know pretty quickly if something's working or not in that space. You know, and on the flip side, it's great to have a huge budget, and I've lived in that world too, and where you literally can't spend it all. But you know, how much of that is wasted?
Sure.
At the same time, because you can try everything. So what are you really focused on, and you know, where is the cut? Where are you really getting the cut through?
I would imagine you guys have like a pretty good high level of engagement amongst your sort of, let's say, your Facebook fans. You know,
we do. Yep, we do. Yeah, they look. I always love the fact if something happens and we might get a slightly unfavourable comment.
Sure.
We time how long it takes for someone to jump in.
It's really nice when you've got the community supporting.
Yeah, and the Haigh's community kicks in, and it's like, no, just wait a minute, let's just see, and lo and behold, I think, and that comes back to the trust and the faith.
That's right.
And I think that's really lovely, and that's where there is a community of people there who go, no, wait a minute, no, that's not the right experience, or no, that's not right, or actually this is the truth, and you just watch this banter, and you're like, wow, like isn't that amazing that people have found this space in which to do that, and they love our brand so much that they're willing to do that.
Sure.
You know, of course, we'll jump in as well, but it's just always interesting to see how quickly other people jump in and support you and believe in what you do, which is lovely.
I think building that tribe, I mean, you don't build that tribe by, you know, using Helix persona. You build it by, you know, doing a good job for a long time. And
you respond to people and you're polite and you deal with things and you sort things out when there are problems. And we you know, one of the marketing team is, you know, that's her job to deal with all of those things.
Sure.
Good, the good, the bad, and the in between.
So you do have someone sort of on community engagement.
Yep. Yeah, and you know, we still get handwritten letters.
Nice.
Which is lovely. Faxes not so much.
Do you respond with a handwritten letter? Or?
If it's a handwritten, we do.
That's awesome.
Oh.
I really like that.
And I do like a handwritten note myself, so I'm always happy to do that.
Yeah.
And often they don't put an email address actually, which is interesting.
Sure.
So you know, we like to and we engage through community sponsorships as well, and you know, we have a system there that we can use for that too. So it's those other layers, and you know, it's touching, having those touch points, which sounds so marketing theory,
sure.
but you know, having another one of those touch points where you can have people enjoy and experience your chocolate and your brand in a non-threatening, you know, not high cost way.
Sure.
Which I think can be underrated.
All those little things add up, I think. Like if you get a handwritten letter back, that's you're going to be, it's going to, you know, it'll impress you. You'll be like, wow.
Yeah, and you know, and kids love coming in and seeing our chocolate tours. You know, that's just another experience that you can stand there and watch someone. I had my 4-year-old niece who lives in Perth visit today, and she just stood there in awe, you know, watching one of our wonderful chocolate makers and staff, you know, dipping chocolates by hand. And she just stood there for 5 minutes going, she's like, can I go in there? I said, no, darling, it's okay. She's like, oh, I'm happy to wear a hairnet. I'm like, you're a bit too small. But, you know, just in awe that, you know, and the smell and the, you can't buy that.
No,
and you
sure.
can't, you know, you just have to create it and hope that people come. But yeah, I think that's just another way that you can do that, give that experience.
I saw you talking with Michaela about the Speckles video that went viral.
Oh goodness!
It's so interesting though, because you know, people spend so much time and money trying to create, you know, viral content, and then you have something like that.
Oh look, yeah, and that was one of my team going next door, going, they're making Speckles. I'm going to go grab a snap, you know, and some video. And I'm like, go for it. And yeah, because I guess we assume, and this is I think where you always have to take a step back. We assume people know how things are made, and that, you know, how we see something made every week becomes uninteresting.
Sure.
But I think with that one, it was like, people are like, oh my, that's backward to how I thought it would be made.
Sure.
So it was like that whole, oh my goodness, it's the reverse. That's insane. And
Did you watch the video, Nick?
No, I haven't watched it.
oh, you have to watch it. It's still terribly hand done, which is tremendous. But we literally just get massive trays of, they're called nonpareils, so they're the coloured balls. And we...
The non-trademarked hundreds and thousands.
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
That's why they're called speckles.
Yeah, I know. Non-trademarked
Right,
freckles.
yeah, exactly. And we literally just throw chocolate into the trays of plop, 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 plop.
Yeah.
And then they actually get thrown into a sieve, giant sieve, and all the nonpareils drop out, and then you're left with the speckle.
What's a non-parel when it's home? Non-parel.
A nonpareil is a coloured beaded candy confection.
Multicoloured.
Coloured, it's sugar bead.
Glitter, yeah.
Sugar bead.
Sugar bead.
But yeah, it was just, everyone thought it was a moulded product. So
Yeah,
it just
sure.
blew everyone's mind. And yeah, it just went, it did go viral. Like, it was quite amazing.
But the simplicity of that, I love that. Like, and I think
An iPhone and, 2 minutes of footage and
I think
done.
you do often forget that, even just watching that, how chocolate was made, I didn't know that, but it's just one of those simple things that you sort of don't look into. So the sort of, ideas and content all around you all the time that you wouldn't think is going to be, content that people are going to engage with.
and share and go, oh my God, I can't believe that's how you make a speckle. And how many of those do you make a year? And it's like, well, we make millions of them. And, it takes a team of 8 people to make them and pack them because they're all packed by hand.
Oh, wow.
And it's quite crazy, actually.
They are very delicious.
They are good. I think I've been trying to figure out why they are so good. And apart from the fact it's good chocolate, I think it's the ratio of chocolate to the non-pareil.
They're slightly chunkier than the
Standard, the trademark
version.
The other trademark product.
And the chocolate's a lot better. Like, I got given a little that size tin of it as a gift recently. I was sharing around the office, but actually lasted quite a while because they're rich as well.
You can't eat too many.
No, you can't.
But the best thing, did you put 2 back to back and eat them?
How delicious.
That's my little trick. You end up eating double, but yeah, it's like, then you get the
sandwich.
the speckle sandwich.
Nice.
A freckle sandwich.
Can't say that word.
We'll bleep that out.
Yeah. Might get sued. Speckle, speckle, speckle. If you say it enough, you remember.
I love the nonpareils. So what's next for Haigh? What's 2018-19 bringing?
It's bringing hopefully a couple more stores.
Nice.
And expansion. So we're focusing on the eastern states for that.
Sure.
And then hopefully, we'll be looking at production and new products. We've got some beautiful new products coming out, which if I talk about too much, I will get told off. But I'm fortunate enough to be able to taste those before they come out. So, we've probably got 5 or 6 new products coming out that are really good. And, it's about we refine what we've got to. So there's some reworkings of some old favourites. And it's, just about, I guess, from a packaging point of view, we'll have a new gift range coming out. So that's busy. Working on that and really trying to make sure that we're still delivering the great experience. But, we're looking at refurbishing the visitor centre too. So that's a major project that's part of that. But, it's a busy time. We used to have sort of quiet periods, but that's all gone now. It's all gone now. They were the good old days.
You obviously have your seasonal lines, but then you have your best sellers that you're never going to change.
Yep.
But is it sort of an annual thing where you're trying to bring new products in and testing them and
and some products disappear.
Sure, sadly.
Sadly, you can only have so many on the shelf, and that's a really tough decision. That there are arguments about that.
I bet.
Heated, good debates about what should come and what should go, and but then I think that's changing tastes.
Sure.
So that's why we sometimes tweak products too, and we'll tweak them and give them another go, and just make sure that are they really not wanted anymore, or are they does it just need a rework and does it need to taste better than it does? But the speckles of the world, which is our biggest seller, will always be there, I suspect.
What's the second biggest seller?
The frogs. Yeah, everyone loves the chocolate frog.
Nice.
Do you find Do you find that if if you tweak one small thing that they do sell, like if it was like an oval shape, but you changed it to like a round bowl shape or something along those lines?
People will notice the strangest changes. Like, I think because they are such fans and people have their favourites, and if you tweak their favourite, they're onto us straight away. They really, really do know. Yeah. So we actually do that with caution, and we let people know that it might not taste the same as the last time they ate it. But we always, and sometimes ingredients change, and that's out of our hands. We try and use Australian ingredients as much as we can in the first instance, and South Australia first, Australia second, and then overseas. Nice. I think that's another reason that, like our scorched almonds are so good. They're South Australian almonds. They're, we roast them ourselves as well. So it's things like that. But, sometimes ingredients change, and they do then fundamentally change the taste of the product, which is a shame. But yes, those that are passionate about that particular chocolate know pretty quickly, and they're on to us. Yeah. So, but yeah, look, there are a few really delicious things, and hopefully a couple of old favourites coming back, maybe even two. So, yeah, I can't say any more.
What's the history of the chocolate frog?
It's been around for many decades, and it was just the rumour has it, because we can't go back to the 1930s.
Sure.
To find out the truth, but it sort of was based. There was a company in Melbourne called McRobinson's.
Okay.
And it was based on they were doing a sort of animal shapes and things like that. So we thought we needed an animal of some sort, and a frog's quite good because it's a small moulded product that didn't need to be foiled or covered. Sure. So yeah, and it just grew from there. And I think it's just the right size chocolate. It's enough for two or three bites, and you feel satisfied. But that's another theory I've got. I think because of our high cocoa content, you don't need too much of it. Yeah. You don't feel like you have to consume a whole block of it to get your cocoa hit. So, 2 frogs is probably half too many for me. One's probably not quite enough, but, two's too many. So, yeah. But I think that's because of the quality of the chocolate that we make. That's the kind of
chocolate I like to eat, though, where it's, you have one line of a bar, and it's enough. You feel sated. You just sort of don't have that sugar rush where you just want to keep going back.
Yeah, and you've got a little bit for the next night. That's okay. You keep it in a jar, and you don't have to. You don't have to consume it all.
Keep it away from my wife. Finds my chocolate stash all the time.
I think we have one in down.
Is this staying in here? Staying in the work?
Yeah, this stays in this room.
Doesn't go anywhere. Well, I should ask you two. What are your favourite chocolates, Haigh's chocolates?
Ooh, so I love the frogs. I grew up on frogs. So that's
milk, dark, peppermint.
So I loved milk as a kid. I like dark more now.
Yep.
But I actually still like milk chocolate, and I love the almonds too. Milk chocolate almonds, actually.
Okay.
So it's funny because I kind of flip between having a sweet tooth and not, and recently I've been eating a lot of chocolate again. Yeah. I'm not sure why.
That's good. No, I'm happy to hear that.
Especially with red wine. Like I like having just a
little bit. Do you know what? The 70% dark pastilles are good with a bit of red wine.
Oh, nice.
And even the coffee pastilles with the right wine, they're a really good match too.
Caramel. I like anything with caramel too.
Okay. Well, there's a caramel something coming out at Christmas. Just heads up. And the salted caramel's really good too.
100%.
That's probably one of the best-selling loose chocolates that we do now. It's a salted caramel. Yeah.
The salted caramel came back in a big way, and then peanut butter. Everyone's doing peanut butter stuff.
They do. We don't have any peanuts in our factory though, so that's why we're staying away from peanuts. Just that whole allergy side, which is the other whole challenge with food products.
Yeah.
And making sure that's all there. That information.
My wife's American, so she always came with sort of the
the Reese's Pieces. Yeah. Yep.
Reese's Pieces.
Yeah, the Reese's Pieces aren't that good though. They're all right.
They're very sweet.
They're very sweet.
Yeah,
incredibly sweet.
Well, we do a fudge.
Oh, I love fudge.
Yeah, that hits the spot for the sweet stuff. And
you can't eat too much fudge.
No.
Mine's probably the almonds.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I'm glad I brought some.
Yeah, I had a bag of these at home the other day. Finished them.
When they're really fresh, they look like olives.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
in some photographs, people have gone, are they olives? And I'm like, no, they're the dark scorched almonds. I'm sorry, they just look really shiny and perfect. And, you know, they don't end up necessarily
I like
that.
For a branding thing, just have them in an olive jar.
Yeah. Yeah, then, you know, no one knows they're
Yeah,
chocolate.
keep them in the fridge.
Yeah.
That's clever.
You put them in a little jar, they look like olives. No one will touch them.
Yeah.
It's
Secret
fine.
olive chocolate.
But you put them. I've actually put them on a table, and people were not eating them, and I'm like, that's chocolate. And they're like, oh, we thought they were black olives. I'm like, no, please.
Find the oldest jar of like, you know,
Olives,
black and gold calamari or something.
Yeah,
Just like-
exactly. So put them in there, wash it out really well so you don't get the taint, and you'll be fine. Keep it on the shelf in the pantry, no one will know.
That's awesome.
Secret chocolate stashes.
You need to have a secret chocolate stash, though. I know that there's a couple in the office downstairs. Tess and Mel have a secret stash.
Yeah.
We don't
How
know.
it can't be too secret if you know where it is, or you just know it exists.
Well, we
Always
see
see
them.
them.
They see them
Yeah.
trading chocolate.
They always like walking over to each other.
Yeah.
And that's like the only reason they walk to each
So
other.
that is the chocolate
The chocolate.
exchange
Yes.
under the table. I love it. We have a cupboard that we have to walk to get to it. Otherwise, and it's like the walk of shame. It's like, yes, I'm eating more chocolate. It's okay. That's the other downfall. When you're looking at chocolate and beautiful photography all the time and writing about it, you're like, oh, I could really do with some chocolate.
Well, it's testament to the product that you're not sick of it. You still
Yes,
enjoy it.
that is true. That is true. You kind of, when you first start though, you overindulge.
Bet.
And then you sort of narrow it down. And my rule is I've got my 10 favourites and I try and focus on those.
Nice.
Things can drop in and come out, but it's sort of 10 only. Otherwise, every time it goes past, you're like, oh, yeah, I'll try some
What
of
sits
that.
at number 10? What's the...
Dark Rocky Road.
Oh, Rocky Road. Dark Rocky Road.
Dark Rocky Road.
Nice.
Which is, beneficial because we only make it between Easter and Father's Day anyway. So it's not available all
Limited
year.
supply.
Probably number 9, the Milk Coconut Ruff.
Ooh,
From the
coconut
cabinet.
Ruff's good.
Coconut's always good.
Yeah, coconut's excellent. And then you throw in a couple of frogs and salted caramel here and there, and a cappuccino bars, and
Nice.
the dark cherry bar. See, oh gosh, I could talk about this for hours, couldn't I? The dark cherry bar is really good too. It's a grown-up version of
The other.
that other brand,
Yeah,
the
sure.
trademark
Okay.
product.
Yeah,
Yeah. So if you like that, give our dark cherry bar a go.
Okay.
Very Moorish, but
I
yeah.
want to eat some of this chocolate now.
Well, it's here to eat. No,
Yeah,
can you
which
try
chocolate?
the whiskey one
Yes,
for me?
please.
So yeah, this is the brand new.
Everyone.
Everyone, yeah, go on,
Nate
get
is,
in there.
It is rushing over for the...
It's quite peaty. I'll just give you the. If you like peaty, then you'll be fine. Rustle, rustle, rustle. Yeah, you can't talk and chew, can you?
Bit away from the mic.
Yeah,
It is peaty.
it's quite smoky. It tastes like whiskey.
In a really nice way, though.
Yeah, it's not in a bad way. Not in a bad way. In a delicious way.
It is.
With a
Yeah.
little bit of single malt. Thumbs up. Yep.
It is smoky.
Yeah. It always amazes me how we can get that into a chocolate.
Yeah.
What's the source of the whiskey? Is it a...
It is actually a proper single malt from Scotland.
Nice.
Yeah, proper. I mean, no, it is a single malt from. You can get other single malts. I'm saying like there's no other proper whiskey, but no, it is a genuine Scottish single malt.
I feel like some of the other like liquor infused chocolates, the balance is off. Like it will taste too strongly. But there's that nice mix of the chocolate. and the
Yeah,
whiskey.
it is, isn't it?
Melds together. That's really good.
Thank you. Yeah, what's interesting the first one wouldn't have tasted like that, and we actually I probably tried 6 or 7 versions, and the thing that freaks me out is it will taste different if it's coated twice in dark or coated twice on milk, or if you even put the milk on first and then coat it in dark, or you put the dark on first and coat it in milk.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So the same centre will taste different.
Oh.
It's quite
It's kind of
unbelievable.
like wine then, isn't it?
It
With
is.
the oak and everything.
Yeah, it is really incredible when you sit there and you have them in front of
different
you.
balance.
Yeah, it's kind of. So we have great discussions about that too. Should
I
it be
want-
dark
I
milk,
want
milk
whiskey
dark?
now.
You want me? A bit early? No, never too early. Never too early for a
Definitely
single
not too
malt.
early.
Yeah. Too late.
So-
I wanna go home.
And the other one you could try is I've given you the dark first, but I'll
So
rip
tell us
this
about
open.
the single origin. So-
Single origin, they're really limited, so we just get a whole bunch of. As she rips open a box and destroys the beautiful artwork.
No.
Is just a small batch chocolate making taken to the extreme in that we get a very limited number of these cocoa beans, and it's not a blend. So our other chocolate is a blend, different blends, and we have to blend them differently for different purposes. So the same chocolate that coats one product might not coat another one from a blend perspective. But these we make so that we can really show those unique flavours of cocoa beans from different parts of the world. So the Java is quite smoky as well. And it's got that real caramelised flavour to it. And, you get a bit of fruit too, but it's a real smoky. And we actually think, the theory is the smokiness comes from the way that they dry the cocoa beans.
Okay.
So not only, obviously, have you got it growing in different soil, different microclimates, they also get dried differently. And because it can be often more damp in Java, they'll often use small fires to dry.
Okay.
So we think some of the smoke from the fire has got into the flavour of the cocoa bean as well.
It does have a smokiness to it.
Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah.
And a bit of fruit in there as well.
Yeah. And now if you try the one from Belize, it's different again. So that's got a real citrusy, fruity flavour. And it's a darker chocolate, so you've got a higher cocoa content in this one. But like a vintage wine, once this is gone, this is gone. So eat up and people often buy up too. If they find one that they really love, they'll buy a few of them and sort of put them away and hide them probably. See how it's different again?
Very different.
Yeah, I like this one more.
So different.
Yeah. And that's in essence the same thing.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
When people go chocolate's chocolate, you go, well,
Definitely
actually,
not.
it's not. It's
I mean,
not. It really isn't.
If you're blindfolded and ate both of them, you would think they're just different flavour, not the same compound, but maybe two different flavours. This is flavoured with something. So
that's just how it comes out. Really.
So what's the difference between these two? The Java
is 40% and it's more milk. So that's from obviously Indonesia, and then your Belize is that 50? 60. Sorry, 60. Sorry, just throwing boxes across. So that's a higher cocoa content too. So,
and so how do you maintain like the quality of the mix? So obviously you have different,
of the blends, blends. Have very hardworking chocolatiers who monitor that daily.
Sure.
So a lot of chocolate tasting.
Yeah.
And they're checking the moisture content of the chocolate and all sorts of things. And we have trouble just with temperature changes. So when it's really hot in Adelaide, although we're air conditioned and we're cooled, that can affect our ability to make chocolate and chocolates. So we're monitoring that all the time to make sure that we're keeping that quality up. And we also have a very good quality assurance team whose job is to taste chocolate every single morning. So because we do the small batch, they actually taste everything that's been made the day before at both sites. And that's something as employees you can actually join that team for a morning session and have a taste and go through everything. So, yeah.
Over the years, has the sort of geographical regions where we've purchased the beans from changed, or?
It has. We became UTZ certified a number of years ago, and we did that. They've just merged with Rainforest Alliance.
Okay.
So they're going through a bit of a change at the moment, and we're waiting to find out which way that will fall out. So currently it's still UTZ certification. So 80% of our cocoa beans are UTZ certified, and that's on a mass balance principle. And we did that because we wanted to make sure that where we were sourcing the beans from, we're looking after the farmers, and the farmers were looking after the land, and that whole chain of production was right. And, look, we pay a premium for those beans, but we think it pays off. We get better beans as well.
Sure.
So, we buy beans from South America, from Africa, from Papua New Guinea, and we have our special blends and there's secret recipes.
I bet.
All herbs and spices or not, but it's really interesting that and we try and we have to maintain that standard for those blends, but we tweak them all the time to make sure that it's right.
Beautiful. It's a hard job.
I think they have a terribly difficult job eating chocolate and blending chocolate all day.
Part-time winemaker, chocolatier sounds like a very good...
It does, doesn't it? It would be okay, I think.
difficult existence.
And then and then there's the team in what we call the kitchen who are coming up with all the new chocolates
Recipes,
and the centres and cooking. Oh, when the caramel being made and all those sorts of things. It just smells. That I love those smells. So yeah, it's horrible. It's a horrible place to work.
It sounds amazing. Thanks so much for bringing some chocolate in.
Oh, you're welcome.
We probably better let you get going. But yeah, it's been awesome having a chat and I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thanks for
Looking
having
forward
me.
to seeing
That was great.
Haigh continue for the next 103 years.
Thank you guys. It's been good.
Awesome. Cheers.
Thank you.